Our market master of the day is ready with us. Mahesh Nandurkar is India strategist at Jefferies. Mahesh, good morning. Good to have you with us here. Thank you very much for your time. So let's talk numbers and market reactions. Let's assume that we get it's a sort of comfortable majority for the BJP. That's what the election throws up. What does the market do then, Mahesh? Is there big upside here, or do we kind of just sort of recoup what we've lost over the last couple of days? Go back to say 23,000 or something, and then cool off a little bit. What's the likely roadmap? This is, of course, the near to medium term.
Yeah, thanks and good morning. So I think from the near-term perspective, we've already seen a lot of investor positioning, especially from the domestic investors, domestic retail investors, quite adequately positioned. So my view is that from a near-term perspective, a comfortable majority is probably already there in the price, especially in the mid caps and small caps. I would say on the large cap side. I think it's one can probably say that there could be some upside, especially because we've seen large foreign investors selling over the last few months. But I believe that maybe from here on, the mid cap and small caps could possibly take a bit of a breather because we believe that the domestic retail investment activity in the mid caps and small caps, specifically and broadly on an overall basis as well, is at a fairly elevated level. And what we've highlighted in one of our recent notes is that in the last 4 or 5 months, we've seen that the total domestic buying in equity markets is roughly at about $7 billion a month. That's a staggeringly high number. It's up nearly 3x from a year-on-year perspective. So I think the domestic investors are adequately positioned in my view, and maybe we could see some of that unwinding in the near term.
Okay, so I think, Mahesh, hi, good morning. You made some very interesting points. You're saying that a comfortable majority for the BJP is there in the price in the near term. In the longer term, of course, things are positive, but in the near term, you believe that mid caps and small caps could take a breather. Now, if you just go back to history, right, of during election times, what has really happened? In 2014, when there was this inkling that the market had that Narendra Modi would come to power as a prime minister and there would be big development, etc., the market had a massive rally going into elections, and then post the election verdict, there was a bit of a cool off and there was hardly anything left. Do you think we are in that kind of a situation where the market has priced in almost everything? Now, post this, we could just perhaps see a time correction for a bit in this. Is that the best way to look at it?
Yeah, so I think that looks like the most likely scenario to me because as I mentioned, we have seen a fair bit of run up already, fair bit of investor positioning as well. The only segment of investors which is not well positioned on India or Indian markets at this point in time is the foreign institutional investors. So there's a good chance that maybe they come back in, but probably that happens more on the large cap side. But on the mid cap, small cap side, I think probably we might need to prepare ourselves for I would say a flattish market for from the near to mid term.
Hi Mahesh, good morning. Nigel on this side, and good to see you. When today is virtually the final day of earnings, the first quarter earnings. How do you see things pan out? I recall at the start of earnings, I think we had a chat. I was reading one of your notes as well, and I think you were working with mid to a little higher single-digit growth for the year. What are you factoring in, and how was the past quarter in terms of earnings?
So for FY25 and for FY26, we are looking at the broader corporate earnings growth to be in the range of around 12 to 13% growth. We definitely expect a higher earnings growth for domestic cyclicals like the industrial, manufacturing, infrastructure, even banks. So that could be in the range of 16-17%. And some of the outward-facing sectors such as the IT services and the others, probably the growth will be slightly lower. So about 12 to 13% on an overall basis, but domestic, oriented in the domestic cyclical sectors, will see a higher earnings growth. On the quarter that has gone by, we've seen, I would say, probably a similar trend, wherein we've actually seen some earnings upgrades coming through for some of the names on the capex cycle side, and that's always good to know because that has been our sort of core thesis from a stronger positive longer term outlook perspective, because investment cycle is really going to keep the GDP growth and the overall corporate earnings growth at an elevated level, and that is happening. as we speak. So, I mean, just to clarify, the thing that I mentioned about some of these mid caps and small caps and maybe a breather from the near term perspective is near term, because ultimately a lot of these names, are definitely an attractive play on this industrial recovery, the real estate recovery, etc., that we've been speaking about. So, those sectors, those stocks, would be quite good from a long term perspective.
Mahesh, just a quick word on when the sort of, and of course, we're all sort of talking about the base case, because if it is not the base case, it's as someone put it yesterday, black swan, so we don't know, right? But let's just assume that it is the base case and we get what the market is wanting. We've heard the Prime Minister talk about the 100-day agenda, etc. What would be on the market's mind? I'm sure that, in your conversations with foreigners, this comes up as well. Right, it's promised kind of a action-packed first 100 days. Just what's your sense? What could be what could really fire up the imagination of the market from here, in your opinion?
So I think from the financial and the market investor standpoint, one of the key events within the first 100 days is obviously going to be the budget. And my sense is that we've already seen the roadmap for the budget in the February budget. So I think the July budget will probably be just a small bit of tinkering here and there. Most likely we will get a little bit more clarity on how the affordable housing scheme is going to be implemented. So that in the bit of limelight, I would say. But other than that, not really too many things, I would say, from the budget point of view, because we've already seen the budget. There could be some other announcements, and maybe from what we're expecting, not necessarily just from the 100-day perspective, but in the next 5 years or so. Obviously, things that would include more developments on the power distribution side, as that there is that outstanding bill, the Electricity Amendment Act, which could see the light of the day, in this term. And which will mean that, if that were to happen, the power sector, which has already been a key focus for the market, would continue to remain in the focus, in the times to come. There is also this talk about, incremental focus on the trade agreements, the foreign trade agreements, and especially one with the UK. And I know that the UK itself is going to their own elections, but maybe, a few months down the line, we could see some clarity on that. And there could be, a whole bunch of things that, that could be happening. Difficult to point out what exactly will happen in the next 100 days itself. But from the market investor standpoint, I think market is clearly discounting longer term growth. And, many of these things would, therefore, impact, the market and the stock movement over and above what might be announced, in the first 100 days.
Okay, so the first 100 days of the government are important. There's the union budget as well. So is there policy continuity? Is there policy stability? That's something that the market will look forward to, right? Mahesh, always great speaking to you. I mean, we can go on endlessly and, debate what could happen, what shall happen, but nobody really knows until the event is out of the way. So we'll try and touch base with you again, post the election verdict.